Welcome to our video on outlining. These are 3 bottles of outliner. Outliner normally comes in bottles. You do still occasionally see it in these tubes. Probably nothing wrong with the outliner in, but don't try outlining from a tube. It's like trying to get a steady flow of toothpaste. When you stop, it's still coming out 5 minutes later. So I don't recommend using tubes. You can use the outliner in them though, in a piping bag, which I'll show you in a bit. Same with bottles. You can outline from a bottle. I have done. Big bottles aren't so good. You can get a smaller, this is a small, quite soft bottle, and if I wanted to pipe from a bottle, I would decant certainly the larger one of these into this. Outliner is very similar, all the makes. There aren't many bad ones around. There's one which flattens when you use it. I like mine to retain a shape, and certainly all of these tend to hold their shape nicely when you've outlined it. I don't like it to flatten and spread. But all of these are good outliners, and I've rarely come across a bad one. I'm actually going to use the gallery glass in the demonstration, mostly because I've got one open. I'm not going to use a bottle, I am going to use a piping bag. So let's start off by showing you how to make a piping bag and then how to use it. So, how to make a piping bag. This is a bit of greaseproof paper. I think they might call it parchment paper in America, I'm not quite sure. But it's greaseproof paper, which you use in cooking to make a piping bag. And to start with, I'm going to put a crease down the middle. I cut these sheets, these triangles myself out of one large sheet. Get quite a lot out of one large sheet. So I folded it in half. And I've got a crease down the middle. I don't normally do that. I'm only doing that to show you what I'm doing. Now the first thing I'm going to do is twist this one, so this edge here is along this line. So have it facing you like an arrow, grab that one and twist it round so it makes a cone and those edges match up. Okay, so that's part of my cone. Then grab the other one, and that goes along the line at the back, or roughly. It doesn't matter if it's not exact. Now you find you can slide that in and out until the end is absolutely closed up. Doesn't matter if there's a little gap, but if possible, get it closed up. Now, this is going to be hard to show you, but I'm going to take these flaps at the back and fold them over once. Press down and twice and press down. There we go. Now it's folded over twice, inside, once, twice, and that holds the cone in shape. And you'll see there's a smooth side and the side with the join. Hope you can see that join there. I call this the top, the side with the join, the bottom. At this stage, some people will put a small bit of sellotape or sticky something on there to keep it together. I don't. Famous last words, I've never had to, but I shan't be doing that. But if you want to, just put a little bit of sellotape on there. Right, now to put some outliner in there. Put more than you're going to use. Any left over at the end, we're going to snip off the end and put it back into the bottle. Just take this top off and put it back in. So we're not going to waste it. So try and work out how much you're going to use and put more in rather than not so much. If you're doing a really large piece, you might be working on 2 or 3 piping bags. So I've put some in there. Now I'm going to put it down on the thing with the join at the back. Join has to be down on the table. Fold it in and start rolling down. Now, by doing it that way, as I roll, the join tightens. If I were to roll into the join would open up as I roll. So by having the join underneath and rolling away from it, I'm actually tightening it up. And for once, none's come out the end. Sometimes you get a little bit come out the end. It doesn't matter. But that is your piping bag. And now we're going to see how to use it. Right, so here I've got a practice sheet. I've printed this off our website, glasspainting.co.uk, if you haven't visited already. It doesn't really matter what you practice. Now, to keep the sheet clean, I'm going to put it inside one of these plastic wallets. It's the type you use in the office or at school. I have used it before. Let's try and get the cleaner side. There we go. And we're going to start by doing these lines here. Put my piping bag. Now, just on the side here, I'll test a little bit. It is open slightly. I'm getting a small line there, but not enough. So I'm going to snip a little bit off with scissors. Now, your line work should be proportional to the piece you're making. If you're doing a very large piece, you'll probably want thicker lines. If you're doing a small piece, you want thin lines. So snip a little bit off, test it. There we go, that's okay. Until you get the right thickness of line. Even if you're doing a finished piece, never mind doing a practice. Snip it a little bit off at a time. You can always snip a little bit more off. You can't add a bit back on again if you go too far. So do it a little bit at a time until you reach the thickness you want. Now, immediately I'm going to show you two of the biggest mistakes people make when they're outlining. So to do that, we'll zoom in a little bit. Now, the first mistake people make when they're outlining is to scrawl. It doesn't matter whether you're using a bottle or a piping bag, they scrawl along the piece of work as though they were writing with a pen. It produces a very thin line. I'll do that again. And you can see that produces a very uneven line. So we're not going to scroll across the thing. The other mistake people make is pushing it away from the bag. Like that. Again, not a good line at all. The method we're going to use is touch, lift and pull. Always pull, never push. Touch, lift and pull. And I hope you can see that produces a much smoother line. It may break if you've got an air bubble in there, but you can just pick it up again, it's okay. Just finish off these lines, touch, lift, there you go, it's broken there. Knock the end off and then pick it up again. Occasionally you get a hard bit in there and it's hard to press it out for a second. Always have a spare bit of glass or a spare part of the work. I'll show you, I'm using a bit over here just to sort of every now and then clean the end, etc. So always have that. Anyway, you can see those lines are now a lot smoother. Another tip, don't work over an area you've already done. You're only going to put your hand in it. Turn the work round so that you can work on piece clearly without leaning over some work you've already done. So touch, lift, pull, down. Touch, lift, pull, down. I'll keep on doing that. Touch, lift, pull, and down. Touch, lift, pull, and down. to do this other square as well. Touch, lift, pull, down. Just move it round to do the other bits. Don't be afraid to move your work around, so you're always pulling the outliner and not pushing at all. If you've got a very steady hand, which I haven't, you'll probably be able to do it one-handed. You'll notice I support one hand with the other. You should be able to work one-handed if you've got a fairly steady hand. Circles are probably the hardest thing to do. Remember, you want to be pulling it all the time. Little mistake there. Don't worry, if you make a mistake, just keep going. I'll show you why in a second. But the technique is the same all the time, no matter what shape you're doing. Touch, lift, pull, and down. Won't do too much more. Touch, lift, pull, down. Touch, lift, pull, and down. And the same would go if we were doing this lettering over here. Exactly the same. As you're going along, you may want to roll the bag down a little bit. Keep it tight. Keep the liquid lead coming out. Do this W. The technique all the time. Touch, lift, pull. Okay. So hopefully you could see most of that. I'm sorry if you missed the end bit there, but I just did those few letters. So I think you can see the difference between the touch, lift, pull method and the scrawling across the glass or pushing backwards or forwards. All the time it's touch, lift and pull. Right, I said it doesn't matter if you make a mistake. Often, especially when you're doing a large piece of work, you will make mistakes and you'll make quite a few mistakes. If I look over here, here's a design I did earlier. I can find a bit of white paper and we'll put that underneath. And it was a penguin design, but I'm very unhappy with the top of it here. So all I'm going to do is get my craft knife. I've left it to dry, so I can get my craft knife and I can literally cut out the bits I'm unhappy with. It's a little bit springy, don't worry, I'll stick that back on again. So I can cut out the bits I'm unhappy with, which is all that. Push the bits I am happy with back onto the glass, make sure they're firm, and now I can go back, put my design underneath the glass. There we go, about there. Get my liquid lead again. And do those bits again. Now it will blend in more, touch, lift, pull, as it dries. There we go, and once that's dry, that should blend back in. Sometimes if I do a very large piece of work, I'll go through it 2 or 3 times, cutting out mistakes, then going back and touching it back up again until I'm very happy with it. If your outlining's good, the painting should just follow. If your outlining's poor, doesn't matter how well you paint it, the piece will still look poor. Okay, that's the basics of outlining. Don't worry, I'm not going to waste what's left in here. Simply cut off the end, so I've got a reasonable amount there. Get the bottle, and it will go back in there to be used on another day. I certainly well overestimated what I was going to use there. There we go, that saves any of it being wasted. There'll just be a very small tad left in there once I've squeezed the rest of that out. Top back on, we don't want it drying out. Okay, that's the basics of outlining. I'll bring that back. So you can download this practice sheet. Do practice, it's well worth the time. You'll notice it's printed in green. That means when you're outlining in black, it's very clear where you have been and where you haven't. Sometimes when you're doing a complicated design, if you're outlining black on a black design, you can't always see exactly what you have and haven't done. Practice is the answer here. Thank you very much for watching. Please do watch some of our other videos.